Hello summoners and welcome to another ProGuides video. My name is Crumbs and today we'll be talking about our predictions for the worst champions going into patch 12.10. It can be hard to really understand how different buffs and nerfs are going to affect the meta, especially after such a massive change. Sometimes a seemingly huge nerf really just brings a god tier champ down to the S tier and they're still plenty OP. Other times, what seems like a minor 2 base AD reduction just causes a champion to drop off the rift. And of course, the changes we're seeing are a lot bigger than usual this time around, so we're here to steer you away from what we think are gonna be the worst champs in each role this patch. We'll be starting things off in the top lane with Jace. Jace has historically always been pretty bad in solo queues since he's heavily balanced around the tippity top of high elo and pro play. The last round of nerfs made him even worse, with him being one of the absolute lowest win rate champs in plat and under levels of play. And this patch isn't gonna be treating him kindly either. The best champs on the new patch are gonna be those that do well in extended trades. Jace's two forms give him either heavy poke or bursty all-in trades, neither of which are going to fare very well. So all in all, he's still going to be a weak laner with even less scaling to look forward to. You won't do much group, and he'll stand even less of a chance in the side lane against any bruiser or juggernaut. Avoiding the champs on this list is a good starting point ranking up, but if you're actually serious about climbing, you should check out ProGuides.com. We have courses from all your favorite streamers and pros like CoreJJ, Aframu, and Xmithy to help you really understand how to play your role. And if you want a more personalized experience, we have coaches available 24/7, ready to help you become the best. Our coaches are top tier players that have spent years climbing the solo queue ladder to get where they are now, and they're ready to share everything they've learned with you. Find our site down in the description box below. Now, let's get back on topic, shall we? The other top laner to avoid going into this patch is Rumble. He's always struggled pretty badly as a top laner, but if he's so OP mid, why is he bad here? His trading pattern works well against mid laners because champs in that role tend to be squishier. He can easily overpower them in all-in fights. But top laners tend to be tankier and are more than happy to stand their ground against Rumble. Even early on, most bruisers are gonna be thrilled to fight you to the death. Those that can't win in the first few levels can spike fast and hard by buying Hexdrinker. From that point on, the lane is pretty much over. It's not like mid lane where the shorter lane makes it safe to just shove and roam. Top laners are much better at setting up a freeze and zoning you from getting any CS or even experience. Then there's the fact that Riot made both Maw and Death Stance insanely OP as anti-magic options for AD champs. With those in the game, there's no way you ever get to outscale a bruiser in the side lane. Taking a look now at our jungle picks, the first champ we have is Zed. While a lot of champs are going to be affected by this, the ones that will feel it the most will very likely be assassins. I'm sure plenty of them will still be viable, but someone that is already high risk, medium reward such as Zed jungle is gonna be awful. I don't know why people are still picking it so much on patch 12.9. He works fine as a mid laner, but in the jungle you have to work way too hard to get fed. And even when you do, you're still making less gold and XP than you would as a mid laner. Since everyone being tankier means less one-shottable targets, it's going to be even harder to pull Zed off, to the point that it's just not worth it. Zed doesn't have any form of utility to fall back on. If you can't one-shot a squishy, you may as well just pick any other champ. While all of the picks on this list are based on a mix of stats and our own analysis, I want to specifically point out that the stats show that Zed jungle is always a bad pick. Yes, even with his fast clear speed, which many claim makes him busted, he just doesn't do that well. I'm not saying it's impossible for it to work. Sure, you can win with it, but by that logic, nothing is truly a bad pick. I have lost to a Yuumi jungle before, we had an AFK, but statistically you're gonna lose a lot more than you're going to win when picking certain things. Gragas is our other jungler to stay away from. Gragas in general is pretty bad right now, with his only positive win rate being in the mid lane. In the jungle, he performs even worse, with his only semi-viable build being to go full AP. This makes him a bursty assassin-like mage, but even when insanely fed, you're only going to consistently get things done when your flash is up. Relying on a 5-minute cooldown isn't exactly the best, especially in the role that's supposed to control the flow of the entire first half of the game. And then of course the full AP build itself is going to be a lot less effective since burst champs are overall going to be much weaker. I could almost see tank Gragas jungle coming back, but only after they give him some buffs to increase his engage and disruption potential when Flash is down. Next up for our mid laners, we'll be starting out with Ryze. But this has absolutely nothing to do with the new patch. If you watch this series, you know Ryze has been a regular on this list. Ryze is another example of a champ that is super heavily balanced around high elo and pro play. Among top players, he's definitely really popular, but even at that level, his win rate is pretty unimpressive, with him being under a 44% win rate even in Master Plus. In fact, even in pro games, he doesn't actually do that well. While he's by far the highest presence mid laner, when he does actually make it through the bans, he has a negative win rate. The other mid laner you won't catch me picking is LeBlanc. She's been a bottom of the barrel pick for quite a while, and with burst champs being hit hard on this patch, she's probably going to do even worse. She's one of my favorite champs to play, don't get me wrong, but I haven't even touched her this season, or really even any of last season. She may surface in pro play from time to time since she works super well with a high pressure jungler, but in solo queue, that just isn't something you can rely on. Hopefully they come back in the next couple of patches and touch up the burst champs like LeBlanc that could really use some love. And on that note, we have today's question of the day. What are some champs that we didn't include on this list that could seriously use some buffs after this patch? For me, another mid laner that deserves an honorable mention is Syndra. She's been pretty irrelevant in solo queue for months after repeated nerfs. She wasn't even viable in the preseason when most mages were absolutely disgusting. But that's just my pick, and we want to hear from you, so let us know down in the comments below. Now, let's get back on topic. Moving things down to the bot lane, the meta won't be nearly as affected as the rest of the roles. There might be a slight shift at the top of the tier list, but the very worst picks will be remaining the same, and so the first marksman you'll want to stay away from is Aphelios. While he's a very fun AD carry to play, if you're trying to win, you should probably avoid him. He feels beyond bad with no real redeeming qualities at all. He's incredibly weak in lane, losing to both weak and strong early game champs. He's supposed to be a scaling pick, but he doesn't scale nearly as well as other hyper carries. The sad thing is, Aphelios doesn't really need crazy buffs to make him viable again. Just a bit of help would make him a competitive pick for those who actually know how to play him. But Riot is just way too cautious due to his popularity in pro play and the 200 years memes. So for now, he's all risk, very low reward, and there's just no real reason to pick him when other marksmen can outperform him. Well, almost every other marksman. And then there's Zary. She's the one pick that is statistically worse than Aphelios. Zary was a ton of fun when she first came out. Insanely high DPS plus ridiculous kiting made her a pick that AD carry mains could use to actually 1v9, something the role has needed for quite a while. That said, she's another case of a champ being objectively super OP, but requiring insane mechanics to play to their full potential, which no one can achieve. So even though she was ultra dominant in pro play and high elo, she was just pretty good in the mid range of elos. She was somewhere around a 58 or 59% win rate in Masters Plus and 52ish in Gold. Naturally, Riot started hitting her with a nerf bat, and after the first couple swings, her win rate started dropping hard in most elos, but remained good at the top of the ladder and pro play. So they beat her again and again with it, and now she's pretty much the worst pick in the game. Now, let's take a look at our supports, starting off with Pantheon. We've been talking for months about how good he is in solo lanes, but for some reason, people just can't stop playing Pantheon in the support role. It's by far his most popular position, but it's also his worst. Any support that relies 100% on snowballing to be useful is never going to be a consistent pick. It requires a strong, aggressive early game AD carry and being against an enemy bot lane that is both weak and dumb enough to let you move up and take fights for free. Plus, you're prone to being camped, and if your jungler doesn't play around you, there's not much you can do. Let's say you get past all that, and you do actually get quite a few kills in bot lane. Pantheon just doesn't have the type of kit that allows you to 2v5 from the bot lane when the rest of the map hard loses. You'll pretty much always just be better off playing a tank to frontline for your AD carry, or an enchanter to buff them up and keep them alive. Finishing off our list, we have Pike. The set of changes he recently got were intended to push him back to being a support full-time, rather than the super OP mid laner he's been all season. Instead, he's just become pretty bad in both roles, and that's only going to get worse on this patch. He's another assassin that relies on going for super aggressive all-ins early to get a lead, and then snowballing that into bigger and bigger wins. But with everyone being tankier, those all-in chances in lane are going to be fewer and farther in between. Pike absolutely needs that extra gold early to start rolling. Without it, you pretty much never have the damage to get executes with his ult, and then you just fall further and further behind. And that about wraps things up for our worst 10 champs on patch 12.10. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to subscribe so you never miss out on our meta guides and so you're always in the loop on what the best picks are. Remember to let us know a champ that wasn't on this list that needs some big buffs after this patch goes live down in the comments below. And one last thing, don't forget to check out our Discord in the description box below where you can discuss League further or just hang out and be part of our community. I can't wait to see you guys back for the next video. But until then, good luck on the Rift and may the LP gods smile down upon you.